I'm at the IMF blog looking at the worldwide growth projections. This is Brian Lewis with MMT Investing, and things just changed. So IMF is the International Monetary Fund, and they do growth projections that are okay, not the best ones. And they're calling this the Great Lockdown, which is the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. And this is a forecast for the entire year of 2020. And you can see that the world GDP global growth is supposed to go -3%. And if you compare the Great Lockdown with the Great since the Great Depression, this is the global financial crisis. So if you compare the Great Lockdown with the financial crisis was minus 0.1 globally versus -3 globally here in this crisis. And output losses 2020. So yeah, this is just a chart of losses getting worse and global crisis, looking at real GDP of advanced economies versus the emerging market economies, which in the financial crisis, the emerging markets came out really well. And here we're looking at emerging markets to also be negative, but advanced economies to be very negative. Same thing here. And you can see China and India bouncing huge out of the financial crisis. And here you can see they're the only positive ones by the end of this year, but not anything close to how they came out of the financial crisis. And policy, blah, 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 cooperation, blah, blah, blah. Okay, here's a really good chart. The latest World Economic Outlook growth projections. So this is for the whole year of 2020, and they have 2019 and a rough projection for 2021 in here also. And it says that the health situation will severely impact, can't say that on YouTube, don't, no, will severely impact growth across all regions. And here's the projections that we're looking at. So their whole world output for 2020 is a -3% GDP drop. And that's the worst GDP drop since the Great Depression that they're projecting. And then we have Europe being epically bad, especially Italy. And then all of the advanced economies are pretty bad with a -6 average. And then when you get into the emerging markets here, they're negative overall, but you can see China and India look to come out positive here. And we have the Asian countries are close to zero, which is better than most. And then if you look at the entire emerging markets, you can see like the more advanced countries in the emerging markets look a little bit more like the advanced economies. And they have Russia in here as an emerging market. I don't know if that is the correct place to put Russia, but yeah, the emerging kind of the European and the Latin Americans look to be doing poorly. And then most of Asia and Africa is not going to get hit as hard except for South Africa, and that is where I am right now. Looks to be more of a modern economy that's going to get hit harder than this, hit harder in this situation. Um, so I'm trying to figure out how to do my visa extension. I'm in South Africa and my visa is going to expire soon, and well, I'm on lockdown here, and the visa offices aren't processing applications and things. So this chart is probably good for me. Oh, please smash that like button to help me out with the YouTube algorithm. This chart is a good thing for me to look at as far as where I could go. And it really just looks like Africa or Asia are the best places. I just came from Asia. As far as economies that are not going to be smashed over the next 6 months, is mostly just Africa and Asia, and everywhere else in the world looks pretty rough. And that's the rough, the IMF projection, which is going to be kind of padded, and it's also not as useful for me because it's an entire year projection. And I do my cycles, they're like 2 to 4 month kind of cycles that I do on the stock market. So a year long growth projection doesn't really help me draw out my cycles. But I thought I'd just do a quick scroll through here and take a look at the Great Lockdown. That's the first time I've heard this called the Great Lockdown. And that is the IMF for you. So, this is not investment advice, and happy trading.